Hey everyone, my name is WyrmsEye and I welcome you to this little shakedown video detailing some of my escapades at the International Championships that took place at the Excel Centre in London over the past weekend. Obviously, I did attend the European International Championships, and obviously, the result that I've got from that is going to affect how I'm going to be viewing the circuit going forward in terms of attending events and whatnot. So while I'm going to be discussing little various things, I'm also going to be kicking up my copy of Ultra Moon, which I'm going to be playing through. Obviously, this is going to hopefully turn out to be the copy that we use for any online battles that we do on the channel, any sort of further matches that we happen to play, etc., etc. So obviously you're going to get a little bit of new gameplay at the beginning. Hopefully a lot of you will have already started your Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon journey, so um, it is going to be a little bit of a ramble, but I wanted to do something a little bit unusual on the side to sort of speed the process up a bit rather than just do a video of my beautiful face, as much as it might be beautiful. I kid, I kid. Um, so yeah, obviously the European International Championships finished over the weekend. Congratulations, of course, need to go to our winner and runner-up in the Masters division. So that the honour of the win goes to Simone Sanvito from Italy. Goes by the name of Sanvi online. Very well played by him, obviously getting through day one with an 8-1 record, then top cutting in the day two with, I think, a 12-2 record. So obviously very strong throughout the tournament, and obviously to make it through the elimination rounds as it was is also a massive bonus for him. But we can't also forget Alex Gomez from Spain, goes by the name of Pokey Alex. Another major final for him in the UK. Obviously, he seems to have an affinity with the UK in terms of doing well at events. This final follows up his Nationals win back in 2016. So very well done to him, obviously, for making another deep run. And obviously both of those players will be, I think, in the running for stipends or travel awards to Australia. I'm not 100% sure of the CP tables at the moment, but I'm pretty sure that both should be either well within or in a fighting chance of making the stipend cuts. So obviously it was a very long event, a 3-day event starting on the Friday, even though check-in was in on Thursday. Quite a busy period, and obviously you get to meet up with a lot of friends and acquaintances, in this case from an international standpoint, so there was a lot of people that you barely see only once or twice a year, depending on how often you go to overseas events and whether or not you attend Worlds as well. So yeah, it was a very interesting event from my perspective because 2017 hasn't been the best hunting ground for me in terms of securing points and whatnot. Results wise, I've always gone positive in every event that I've attended, regional or international as it may be. In actual fact, all of the international and regional events last year that I attended, I got a 5x record depending on how many rounds they played. So obviously I was going above average but not making the breakthrough that I was hoping for, especially when it comes to championship points, where with the most recent kickers they're very strict in terms of how many players we need to get before we hit the respective kickers, and obviously you have to do pretty well now at events rather than sort of going fairly even in the standings. So it does make a huge difference. So I went into Friday, had a team that I was really happy with and I was actually pretty confident with, which makes a huge difference for a lot of people. And for me, it was the first team that I've actually used at a major event, aside from Birmingham, where I ran the Boom Sun with the Mimilax core and Torkoal, that I did on my own terms, although I did have help, obviously tinkering around with spreads and obviously borrowing from others that were in the open, shall we say. So I went forward with that. For Friday, got in at about just after 9 o'clock, got through bag check. That was a bit of a palaver. But from the outset, I felt really comfortable. I was relaxed, which always helps when you go to these sorts of events, especially when you're up against some of the best and brightest players in the circuit at the time. In terms of numbers that we saw, I believe the Masters figure was around 461. Obviously it's a lot lower than what we had last year and well down on, I think, the expectations that a lot of the community were hoping for. That's a discussion that I think needs to be taken in a separate video or in a separate context, because obviously the ins and outs of what happened in London in terms of the organisation front prior to the event has been well documented over a large amount of social media, tweets and online, that sort of thing. So with that respect, it's not in my best interest to go over it here. Obviously I may just touch upon it in other parts, but we'll go on to that. But yeah, the 400 plus Masters did mean that we had a top 128 cut in terms of championship points that was being awarded. So anyone who was going to achieve a 6-3 record was going to be guaranteed points, which is halfway decent, but it does mean that 5-4 wasn't necessarily a safe bet for players, and that's something to be very acutely aware of. So obviously the hope was to get through to day 2 with the team, and I did feel like the team was a good call for that. I will be doing a team review episode which should be coming up later this week, hopefully. In that respect, obviously I wanted to try and get 7-2 because there were 9 rounds of Swiss, and I feel like I could have achieved it. A lot of the games that I had were very close, and the games that I lost, apart from one specific matchup where I didn't think I really had a good hope of beating the opposition, I felt relatively confident going into each match, which is more than I can say for a lot of other teams that I've used. Sometimes I've been very unsure of where I stood on how I wanted to approach games with certain teams, especially ones that I'd borrowed. That being said, I did lose my first round. I lost round 4, and I also lost in round 7, which was the round that I was knocked out. Obviously, the player that knocked me out in round 7 actually top cut to day 2, so I'm extremely happy for them. Because it was a fellow UK player in the name of Eden Batchelor. He had done particularly well going up to that point, so I'm glad that he managed to hold his nerve through the last few rounds, as it were, because that's always a very difficult balancing act, because every game you play, you're always on the margins of whether or not you can make the right calls, make the right decisions at the right times, and not make mistakes that might cost you, especially in the later rounds when fatigue sets in, you're mentally drained, you might not be drinking or eating properly, so you might be struggling in that respect. So from my perspective, actually getting 6-3 was really good for me, and I'm really happy that I did, because one of my long-standing gripes is that all my national and international results I've had have been a 5-X record as well, going back as far as 2014. It just seems like every national and international that I went to, it's always been that I just couldn't make that 6th win. And the last couple of rounds that I was playing in rounds 8 and 9, I was up against it. I'd lost both of my game 1s in both of those rounds and had to claw my way back in. But at the end, 6-3 record. Finished 94th, so top 128, and I got 100 CP from the event. That now puts me at 125 for the year. So I'm well over a third of the way to my invite for Nashville, Tennessee, and I am planning to at least chase a day 1 invite this year, because I am certainly closer than I have been for the past couple of years after this point, and I feel like there is enough points on the table from local events and some of the regionals and even potentially another international that I can go to, where I can pick up the remainder of the points required. Obviously that does mean that I am making plans in terms of where I want to go from here, in terms of what events I want to travel to, because obviously there are a few coming up. We've got, I believe it's Treviso coming up in December on the 16th and 17th. Unfortunately, they're a bit too close for me to actually make any sort of attempt to go to. Work commitments and obviously holiday I have to be very mindful of, and in December, where I work for a big name retailer, it's a lot harder for me to book the holiday off in December, where in the run up to Christmas it's a particularly busy time, and it's often very shunned upon taking holiday in December. Beyond that though, we've got Leipzig coming up in the late January, so the last weekend of January I believe. We also have Malmo in the middle of February, but we also got information about the International Championships taking place in Sydney in Australia. That's happening over the 9th to the 11th of February. And this is again something that I'm looking into. An international championship does provide a lot of points on the line, and I feel like that would probably be one of my best chances in terms of getting at least a sizable handful of points that I need towards my invite, though it wouldn't necessarily be the most cost effective. I mean, Leipzig is fairly cheap in terms of travel. Not had a good look on accommodation just yet, but that will come in due course when I make my decision. And the same with Malmo as well. It's on the radar. I think it's relatively cheap, but obviously accommodation and sorting something out with those who may be looking to go out to that regional will be something that I'm trying to go for. So obviously I'm looking at the various options on the table for me. At the moment, my gut reaction is I'm leaning towards trying to do a double header of going to Sydney in Australia and then following that up with Malmo and booking off a 2-week block with my employers in the period of February. That would be enough holiday time for me to book up, because I have got a glut of holiday that needs using before the 1st of April, when it will be lost for me. But apart from that, it was very nice actually seeing everyone again, and in terms of these sorts of events, it's always a big thing where you want to see friends and acquaintances, and it's one of those things that I'm really passionate about. I want to make an impression sometimes. I don't often go up and speak to people like I really should. And I do need to really work on that. It's more being introduced by friends and acquaintances to other people that I find is easier in my book, rather than just walking up to someone and saying hi. I'm much more of a reserved figure in terms of that point. But yeah, I think I made an impression with a lot of people on the Friday, especially with the get-up that I was wearing. Obviously, I can't show any photos at the moment because I haven't got any from any of my close friends. And obviously, the person that did take the most photos of me, Zach Drakamp, Bravarius Online. Sorry if I butchered your surname. I know everyone pronounces it wrong, and I'm sorry. But he's got a few pictures of me in my attire that I'm sure will go up on social media, and everyone will get a real kick out of, for those who weren't there. Obviously it was a super day, and I was really happy with how I played. I did get lucky in parts. I even saw an occasion where one of my opponents got a critical hit, and it actually made it worse for them because it procced my 50% berry, which was really funny in some way, because it would have probably lost me the game if it hadn't crit, more so. But yeah, the standard of play in day one, I think, has certainly got a lot better over the course of the past few years. And this year, I never really faced an opponent in any of my rounds that I would have said weren't auto-win matchups. Every team that I saw was sensible, it was strong, and every opponent actually put up a really good fight. So I got to give props to all the opposition that I faced. I can't go over your names because unfortunately I don't have my notebook at the moment. I lent it to a friend for day 2, and I didn't actually get it back in time before I left on the Saturday evening. But yeah, so plan is I am chasing the invite to Nashville. I am looking at any of Leipzig, Sydney or Malmo. Beyond that, obviously I think there's a couple more special events that are taking place later in the year, and obviously we still got the regional that's happening in Sheffield much later in the year, around June time. So that will be something that we will be looking into, especially at the later stage where we may still be needing some points to reach that invite. I think, though, even at this early stage, that there is a very good chance I will still be attending Nashville, irrespective of whether I get the invite or not. What has happened in the past few days is my family were planning to book a holiday out to Kuala Lumpur with my my brother's wife's parents, to go and meet out with them again. While they are likely still going to be going out, it looks increasingly likely that I can't go with them because of work commitments. One of my fellow admin members in this retailer is also on holiday around the same time, so it's very unlikely that I can book the same time off as I would like. So whereas the plan was that they would be paying for my travel across to Kuala Lumpur as a combined Christmas and birthday present, I think the plan is now that they will actually be funding my trip across to Nashville. So I am looking forward to that. It is something to get extremely excited about, but obviously I would like to go there as an invitee rather than just as a spectator, if you get what I mean. So there is a bit of pressure on to make those final points that I still need. But we are on the right track. We have got off the mark, so to speak, and yes. So, as I've said before, we'll be looking at doing a team review of the team that I took to London. I think that will come out probably on Wednesday. On Friday, I will look to try and do a small review session of the London Internat's top cut, and obviously go over some points that I saw personally from watching the games back, what I faced, and some of the other issues surrounding London that maybe might have been not as frequently picked up on. Metagame changes. Obviously, this metagame is going out at the end of December, so it won't be a significant thing, but it will be something that, just to round off the season, I know there's a few regionals taking place in the USA, and obviously we've got the special event that still will be running under 17 rules, so it could be still somewhat useful. But until then, guys, I hope you don't mind the ramble too much. It is something that I wanted to do. Doing it off the cuff is a bit difficult because I'm trying to think what I want to say as well as trying to concentrate on playing the game, even if it is just glancing at it. It's been a bit difficult for me because I've been away for so long. It's getting used to recording and speaking and doing everything at the same time, so you will have to forgive me on that. If you did like this, leave a like, comment down below if you've got any points that you want to raise, any comments that you would like to put forward to me. I'll look at answering anything that's put in front. But until Wednesday, when I put the team builder out, I hope you have a wonderful week, and until next time, goodbye for now.